I want to just be really honest and open about something. I've been really struggling with the Hall of Fame. Just really, really struggling with the whole, especially the NFL Hall of Fame. Like, basketball and baseball are a little bit different because their sports rely really heavily on stats. Batting averages and shooting percentage, and stats really do matter a little bit more in those sports, it seems like to me. Football is unique because stats don't always accurately represent a player. In basketball, everybody shoots. In basketball, everybody has a three-point percentage. In football, it's so different, right? There's no quarterbacks don't tackle. A lineman doesn't throw passes. Like, there's not the same amount of equality and equity. I understand, like, basketball, there's different positions. In baseball, pitchers have different stats than hitters, but everybody hits in baseball other than the pitchers, and it's just there's a different level of sameness, and it's just so much more varied in football. And here's my struggle with especially the NFL Hall of Fame, but really any Hall of Fame has this similar struggle, is there's no rubric for getting into the Hall of Fame. There's no consistency. There's so many arguments people can make. I mean, you can argue for a guy's story. People say you can't tell the story of the league without this guy. And then I guess, well, what about a one-hit wonder? What about Nick Foles? Nick Foles is an important story to tell in the NFL. A guy who came off the bench, led his team to a Super Bowl, beat Tom Brady. Like, I'm going to tell my kids that story, but he's not a Hall of Famer. And so then you acknowledge, well, like, you got to pay attention to accomplishments. That should be part of the rubric and part of the idea that gets a guy into the Hall of Fame. But Hall of Fame can't be just about stats. Like, especially in the NFL, if that was the case, you would get guys like, you would let Matt Ryan in, for example. Is Matt Ryan a Hall of Famer? Using stats is highly flawed because the game has changed over time, especially in football. Like, compare a quarterback today to any quarterback in the past. Joe Montana, Troy Aikman to Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan has way better stats than those guys, but Matt Ryan played in a different era with different rules, and the game is different. They play more games now than they used to. They used to play a 13-game season back when the Dolphins went undefeated. I don't know, man. Then there's other factors, like people say, well, this guy changed the game. Michael Vick changed the quarterback position forever. Michael Vick, when guys are in middle school deciding to play quarterback or running back, a guy that used to pick running back now will play quarterback because coaches and players in the world understands having a quarterback who can run the way Michael Vick could run changed football forever. People go, oh, if you have a quarterback who can move, that's a huge asset to have. Quarterbacks are now great athletes thanks to Michael Vick, but Michael Vick doesn't have the top stats. He never won a Super Bowl. And honestly, let's be real, dogfighting is going to keep Michael Vick out of the Hall of Fame because the NFL will never be comfortable. They'll be afraid it's going to make them look bad. And so the Hall of Fame is just a complicated mess. There's no consistency. There's no clarity. And I don't want to let just anybody in. I want it to be a hard thing to accomplish. The Hall of Fame should be a special honor that is held with reverence, not just, we got to fill a quote and let this amount of guys in. And some people say, like, if you weren't considered the best at your position at one point in your career, you shouldn't be considered to be a Hall of Famer. Like, Eli Manning is a very interesting case study because he's got some all-time numbers. He's like number 7 on the all-time lists for like 3 statistics. I think it's passing touchdowns and completions and yards. He won 2 Super Bowls. Eli Manning has a great story. He refused to play for the Chargers. He's Peyton Manning's brother. He won 2 Super Bowls. He beat Tom Brady doing so. He's a 2-time Super Bowl MVP. But also at no point in his career was Eli Manning considered, or even in the discussion, for best quarterback in the NFL. Nobody at any point. You can lie if you want, but don't lie to yourself. Nobody ever thought Eli Manning is the best quarterback in the NFL. Nobody ever thought that at any point in his career. Nobody had that thought. So yeah, I think what the Hall of Fame does is offers endless arguing. And honestly, here's how I think it currently works, especially in the NFL. Getting into the Hall of Fame requires a mix of story and accomplishments. If you have enough of both, if you have enough accomplishments and a good enough story, you get in. That's how it works. Whether that's right, wrong, indifferent, whether that makes you mad or not, that's just the reality of how the Hall of Fame works. So here's how I plan to cover the Hall of Fame moving forward. Number 1, I plan to accept the fact that I have no control. I don't have a vote. There's no rubric. There's no standard of consistency for what gets you into the Hall of Fame, other than it seems to me like it's about story and accomplishments. But again, I have no control. My opinion, really, in the scheme of getting into the Hall of Fame or not doesn't matter. I can say this guy's a Hall of Famer, this guy's not. Does my opinion really matter other than to provide entertainment? Not really. So here's my plan. Moving forward, I'm just going to celebrate the guys who get in. Every year, there's going to be an announcement. These, X amount of guys are getting into the Hall of Fame. And what I'm going to do is just celebrate them. Tell their story. Talk about why they were chosen, if I can figure it out. But really just talk about their story and who they are and what they accomplished. And try to share and try to get an idea of who they are and appreciate their story and what they contributed to the football world. I have no control. There's no clear rubric as to what gets somebody into the Hall of Fame. There's no consistent guidelines. And at this point, unless I create my own rubric, which seems basically impossible, because no matter what you decide, there's always a counter argument to this or that. There's no clarity. It drives me up the wall. It makes me nuts. But all I can do is celebrate the people that do get inducted into any Hall of Fame. Say, hey, good for that person. I'm happy for them. Let's celebrate them. Let's celebrate their accomplishments. Let's celebrate their story. Let's celebrate what they were to the sport they played in. That's all you can do with the Hall of Fame. Because there's no rubric. There's no consistency. And that lack of consistency, that lack of a standard, oh, man. It does irritate me. I don't know. I wish there was a clear, consistent standard, but there's not. And so all we can do is appreciate the people that make it in.